Make sure I'm getting the monument too. So.
All right. So I'm speaking here today on behalf of the Jasenovac Memorial Center in Belgrade, and also as a member of the board of directors of the Jasenovac Research Institute here in New York. First of all, I'd like to say that I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be a member of JRI and to commemorate the suffering of the people of the former Yugoslavia during the period of World War II, the destruction of Yugoslavia at that time, and the torture that the Croatian Ustasha regime instituted against all persons who they didn't accept as members of their new greater Croatia. Many people are unaware of the fact that during World War II, Croatia expanded its borders and seized the entirety of Bosnia and Herzegovina, plus part of Serbia, as its own territory. And as a result, not only were they dedicated to slaughtering as many as they could of the Serbs who lived in Croatia proper, and the Jews and the Gypsies and the anti-fascists and communists and everybody else who was opposed to their state, but they also did the same thing to a much larger territory, the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina, where before World War II, the Serbs were the clear majority of the population. And it's as a result of the slaughter in World War II that we have today the division and problems in Bosnia, because the society has been broken up into three minorities that are pitted against each other. So we have a terror, a Holocaust, whose destructive and murderous effects are being felt till this day. I also want to mention today a few names. I'm named for Colonel Jovan Bosnitch, who was the eldest member of our family at the time of World War II. He was arrested by the Croatian Ustasha within the first few weeks of the war. And he was what they considered to be a high-profile target. The reason for him being a high-profile target was, of course, he was a Serb, but that at the end of World War I, after winning the Iron Cross from Austria for having captured the entirety of Istria from the Italians, and thereby increasing the territory of modern-day Croatia by as much as 25%, the Croats could not put up with the fact that it had been a Serb leading an ethnic Serb battalion that had captured all of that territory for modern-day Croatia. So they rounded him up first, and he didn't even have the chance to get to Jasenovac to be tortured and killed. He had served at the end of the war. He had deserted from the Austrian forces and led a ragtag army of Serbs to conquer the city of Vinkovci, where he served as the first mayor after the war. And so they came and they arrested him, and they first smashed his face on the cobblestones of the city in front of the city hall. And when his face was bloodied and broken, they took him not to Jasenovac because it had not yet been built. They took him to be exterminated at Jadovno, which was a pit in the forests of Croatia, where they threw thousands of innocent persons to their deaths. So I'm here speaking in the memory of Colonel Jovan Bosnitch, for whom I'm named, who was killed at the very start of the war as a high-profile target. I'm also speaking in the name of Sarah Hershkovich, my father's girlfriend, who was Jewish, and the daughter of the cantor of the Jewish synagogue. She was arrested, seized by the Croatian forces. She managed to live long enough to be taken to Jasenovac, where she was exterminated, presumably by having her throat slit. My father was in the field fighting in the Royal Yugoslav Army at that time. And when word got to him about what had happened to his girlfriend, who was not a combatant, who had nothing to do with the war, who was an innocent civilian, he led his unit straight and directly toward a Croatian Ustasha unit, and in that day they killed scores of them. And I asked him after, Dad, you said you hated to go to the war and you hated to kill other people. And he said, on that day I lost my mind, like those who killed us. Evil begets evil, and these kinds of events have to stop forever. And they can only stop forever if the perpetrators are identified, tried, condemned, and universally recognized as war criminals. And our problem today is that the government of Croatia, today's independent state of Croatia, the second such incarnation of a Croatian state, was created by a band of people who considered it to be the continuation of the Nazi Croatian independent state of World War II. They named their streets and their public squares after Nazi war criminals. They taught a modified Nazi version of history in their schools. And they continue, supporters of that group in Croatia, who are not few in number, continue to use their fascist signs, continue to have fascist gatherings, continue to be blessed in Roman Catholic churches by Roman Catholic priests, and continue to honor a man who they would saint, a man who blessed the Nazi troops of Croatia, who blessed the murderers at Jasenovac and Jadovno and at hundreds of other sites across Croatia. Many people don't understand that the slaughter in Croatia was not conducted as it was in Nazi Germany. In Nazi Germany, people were rounded up and generally taken away from their communities to camps far away, where they were murdered mainly in secret, so that the general public of Germany was not exposed to executions in the streets. That was not the case in Croatia. It took years to find the minutes of the Wannsee conference to prove that the Germans had made a decision to exterminate the Jews and the other undesirables who they exterminated. There was no need of any research in Ustasha Croat independent Croatia, because it was a publicly declared state policy, an openly announced policy printed in newspapers, that the Serbian question would be resolved by forcibly converting 1/3 of the Serbs to Roman Catholics, by physically expelling 1/3 of the Serbs to Serbia, and by exterminating 1/3 of the Serbs. There was no mystery about this. There is no mystery about it today. And yet there are deniers all across Croatia, all across the Croatian diaspora, and among the apologists for the Croatian crimes. Here in America, there are American politicians who are not even from Croatia, who are apologists for this war crime. And it should also be noted for every American who sees this video that during the course of the war, hundreds of American aircraft bombing Nazi targets across the Balkan region traversed Croatia, and many of them were shot down. The Serbian Royal Army, which fought until 1945, rescued hundreds of American pilots at the risk of their own lives and saved those pilots and airlifted them out to live another day. But 3 of those American pilots fell into the hands of the Croats, and they too were taken to Jasenovac and exterminated there. And I can tell you, if I'm now speaking to an American audience, that we also remember the Americans who were innocent and unknowing of what they faced when they landed in Ustasha, Nazi Croatia. And when they bailed out of their airplane and thought they were saved, but were in fact captured by Croatian soldiers who turned them over to the Ustasha, who took them to Jasenovac and exterminated them, those Americans came face to face with what Ustasha Croatian fanatical Roman Catholic extremism is today and what it was then. We will never forget, and we will always remember all of the victims.
Thank you, John. Thank you. That was John Bosnitch, the director of Jasenovac's Research Institute and the head of the Jasenovac Memorial Committee in Belgrade. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to keep up the work of Jasenovac's Research Institute. I hope that some of you who are watching this video will perhaps make a donation to Jasenovac's Research Institute through our website, through our PayPal account. And and of course, now that COVID is coming to a close, hopefully, we will hold an in-person gathering next year in 2022. This Sunday, we will be holding an online Zoom conference with Michael Berenbaum and the director of the film Dara of Jasenovac, Predrag
Antonijevic.
Right. And so we thank you for coming. We're going to have a small, we're going to do a small ceremony at the Jadovno monument in a moment, but we thank you for coming, and remember that those who broke out of the camp and gave their lives on April 22nd, 1945 did so just so that the truth should be known about Jasenovac and the Ustasha, and we owe it to them to keep this work alive, and let's recommit ourselves to doing so in the future. Thank you, and we'll see you again next year. Thank you very much.